When grief met greed, the sisters lie. A story of loss, betrayal, and finding strength. My name is Rachel, and at 36, I never imagined I'd be navigating life alone. 4 months ago, my husband Marcus passed away unexpectedly from cardiac arrest. Just weeks after his memorial service, I attended my niece Emma's second birthday celebration, where my younger sister Diana made a stunning announcement that would change everything. How we met. Marcus and I first crossed paths 9 years ago at a medical fundraiser for diabetes research. I was coordinating the event when he won a donated photograph in the silent auction, a sunset over Lake Michigan that I'd been admiring throughout the evening. He approached me immediately after winning. "I noticed you kept coming back to look at this," he said, his warm brown eyes meeting mine. "I think you should have it." That generosity defined Marcus. He was a financial advisor who treated everyone with equal respect, from CEOs to custodians. 6 months after that first meeting, he proposed during a sunset cruise on the very lake from the photograph. We purchased our Craftsman home shortly after marrying, a $650,000 investment that stretched our budget, but felt like the foundation of our future. Marcus had just become a senior partner at his advisory firm, and my graphic design business was thriving. The children we never had. For years, we tried to start a family. The journey included countless appointments, procedures, and 3 attempts at assisted reproduction that depleted both our finances and our hope. After the final unsuccessful attempt, we sat together on our back deck in silence. "We can build something beautiful with just us," Marcus said that evening. "This can be enough." And it was. We redirected our dreams, traveled internationally, renovated our home, and invested in our careers. Marcus supported me when I launched my own design studio. Our life felt complete, if different from our original vision. My sister's shadow. Diana, 4 years my junior, had always lived in contrast to my stability. While I built my career and relationship, she moved between jobs and romantic partners. Our parents constantly worried, which translated into repeatedly rescuing her from financial crises. Our relationship had always been complicated. Diana possessed natural charisma that drew people in, but underneath ran a current of competition. When I achieved something, she needed to surpass it. When Marcus and I bought our home, she complained about her apartment situation until our parents helped her upgrade. Marcus encouraged me to maintain the relationship despite the strain. "She's your only sibling," he'd remind me. "Family matters." 3 years ago, Diana began dating Jordan, a musician she'd met at a concert. Their relationship appeared tumultuous, passionate reunions following dramatic separations. Then came the unexpected pregnancy announcement at a family dinner. The news stung. After our struggles, Diana had accidentally achieved what we desperately wanted, but I suppressed those feelings, determined to be the best aunt possible. Emma arrived healthy, and I was at the hospital with gifts I'd spent months creating by hand. Diana seemed overwhelmed from day one, frequently calling me in distress about sleepless nights and feeding challenges. I helped whenever possible, occasionally keeping Emma overnight. Marcus maintained distance from Emma, which I attributed to our own fertility struggles. Perhaps bonding with a baby felt too painful. He was kind when Diana visited with Emma, but kept an emotional barrier I never questioned. The day everything changed. That Tuesday morning started ordinarily. Marcus mentioned feeling unwell before leaving for an important client presentation. I suggested he stay home, but he insisted he'd be fine. The hospital called 3 hours later. By the time I arrived, he was gone. Sudden cardiac arrest. He was 38 years old. The following weeks blurred together. Diana was conspicuously absent during most arrangements, sending messages about Emma being sick or childcare falling through. She appeared briefly at the memorial, then left before the gathering. 10 days after we laid Marcus to rest, Emma's birthday arrived. The last thing I wanted was a children's party, but family obligation pulled at me. "Marcus would want you there," my mother insisted during one of her check-in calls. He valued family above everything. The birthday revelation. I found myself driving to Diana's rental house, a wrapped present beside me and exhaustion evident despite makeup. Sleep had become impossible. I spent nights staring at the empty space beside me. Diana's friend Melissa answered the door, her expression shifting when she saw me. "Rachel, you came," she said, glancing over her shoulder nervously. "Everyone's outside." The small house was decorated festively, but something felt off. Small groups of people whispered in corners, conversations stopping when I appeared. In the backyard, my parents sat uncomfortably at a picnic table. My father stood when he saw me, relief crossing his face. After 30 awkward minutes of accepting condolences and deflecting questions, Diana emerged carrying Emma. She wore a new outfit I hadn't seen, her hair freshly styled. She seemed energized, almost excited. Diana tapped her glass for attention. "Thank you all for celebrating Emma's special day," she began. "This year has brought surprises and challenges." My stomach tightened. "I've been keeping a secret," Diana continued, her hand on Emma's head. "Emma isn't Jordan's daughter, she's Marcus." Time seemed to stop. "Marcus and I had a relationship 3 years ago," Diana announced, her eyes finding mine. "It was complicated, but Emma is the result. Marcus knew the truth. Before he died, he created a new will." She produced a document from her bag. He wanted Emma provided for. This will states that half of the house he and Rachel owned should go to Emma as his biological child. Everyone turned to look at me. I could see pity, curiosity, discomfort. My parents looked devastated. And then something unexpected happened. I felt a smile threatening to break through. Not from happiness, but from the sheer absurdity of what she was claiming. I pressed my lips together, fighting inappropriate laughter. "I see," I said calmly, taking a moment to collect myself. "May I see that will, Diana?" Her confidence wavered. She walked over and handed me the document, a typed page with what resembled Marcus's signature. I scanned it quickly, noting immediate problems. The legal terminology was incorrect, nothing like the documents I'd seen Marcus work with. The signature, while similar, was clearly forged. The loop in the M was wrong, the baseline slanted incorrectly. "Thank you for showing me this," I said, carefully folding the paper. "I think I should leave now." "That's it?" Diana asked, confusion evident. "You're not going to respond?" "Not here. This is Emma's day. We can discuss this privately." I said goodbye to my shocked parents and walked to my car. Once inside, safely alone, I finally released the laugh that had been building. It started small, then grew until tears streamed down my face, not from joy, but from disbelief at my sister's audacity. Because Diana didn't know something Marcus and I had kept private, something that made her elaborate lie not just hurtful, but impossible. The real story. The truth about Marcus and Diana began 4 years ago. We invited her to dinner to celebrate a new job, her longest employment period yet. Marcus had prepared his specialty pasta, and we'd opened good wine. The evening was pleasant until I excused myself for an urgent client call that lasted 20 minutes. When I returned, the atmosphere had shifted. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Diana was sitting closer than before, her hand on his arm. I thought little of it initially. Diana was naturally affectionate, and wine had been flowing. But that night, Marcus seemed troubled. "I need to tell you something," he said as we prepared for bed. "I don't want secrets between us." He explained that during my call, Diana had made inappropriate advances, comments about how fortunate I was, suggestions that he deserved someone who could appreciate him properly. When he'd rejected her, she'd laughed it off as joking. I was hurt but not entirely surprised. Diana had always pushed boundaries. We decided to let it pass as an isolated incident. But it wasn't isolated. Over subsequent months, Diana found ways to touch Marcus when I wasn't looking, sent messages that walked the line between friendly and flirtatious, and once appeared unannounced at his office. Each time, Marcus maintained firm boundaries and told me immediately. After the office visit, we spoke with our parents. It went poorly. They suggested Marcus was misinterpreting friendly gestures. My mother even implied he might be flattered by the attention. That night, Marcus and I made a decision. We create distance from Diana without causing a family rift. We declined invitations including her, ensured we were never alone with her, and Marcus blocked her number after a particularly inappropriate late-night message. The medical truth. Then came Marcus's health issue. He'd been experiencing discomfort for weeks before finally seeing a specialist. The diagnosis required minor surgery, but there was a complication that led to an additional procedure. The result was that Marcus became unable to father children, a medical fact confirmed by follow-up testing. This occurred 3 years before Emma was conceived. We kept this information private. After years of invasive questions about being childless, we'd learned to guard our privacy regarding reproductive matters. Only Marcus, myself, and his doctors knew. After recovering, Marcus made what seemed like a paranoid prediction. "Diana isn't finished," he said. "I suspect she might try something more drastic eventually." I laughed it off, but Marcus was serious. The following week, he scheduled an appointment with our attorney, Robert Chen. I accompanied him, listening as Marcus detailed Diana's behavior and his recent medical situation. Robert recommended documenting everything: the unwanted advances, the medical records proving biological impossibility, even messages from Diana. "Better to have documentation you never need than wish you'd created it," Robert advised. We followed his advice, creating a comprehensive file. Marcus also updated his will properly through official channels, ensuring everything would pass to me. Robert kept copies, and we placed originals in our bank's safety deposit box. "Just in case," Marcus had said when we locked the box, "though I plan to be around dealing with Diana's drama for another 50 years. The evidence. The morning after Emma's party, I went directly to the bank. The manager, who'd known us for years, expressed sympathy as he led me to the vault. Inside the box was everything I needed. Marcus's legitimate will, properly notarized and executed, leaving everything to me. Medical records, documenting the procedure 3 years before Emma's conception. A detailed journal Marcus kept of every inappropriate interaction with Diana. Printed copies of messages she'd sent him. A letter from Robert confirming the will's authenticity. At the bottom was a sealed envelope with my name in Marcus's handwriting. "My dearest Rachel, *. If you're reading this, something has happened to me and you've needed these documents. I hope it's many years from now and Diana's actions are just distant memories. But if not, use these documents to protect yourself. I know how loyal you are to family, how deeply you love. But you deserve protection from those who would exploit that beautiful heart. I love you beyond measure, beyond time. Whatever happens, know that. Marcus." Tears streamed down my face reading his words, his love reaching out to protect me even after death. My thoughtful, prepared husband had anticipated this possibility. I gathered what I needed and called Robert, scheduling an appointment for that afternoon. Building the case. Robert's office was in a converted historic building downtown. His receptionist recognized me immediately, her expression softening with sympathy. Robert was in his 50s, silver-haired with wire-rimmed glasses. He'd mentored Marcus early in his career, and they'd maintained close friendship. "Rachel," he said, embracing me briefly, "I was devastated about Marcus. He was exceptional." I explained the birthday party announcement and showed him the forged will Diana had presented. Robert examined it, his concern growing. "This is amateur forgery," he said finally. "The language is incorrect, and the signature wouldn't withstand expert analysis. But that she created this at all is deeply troubling." I showed him the documents from the safety deposit box. Robert reviewed everything carefully. "Marcus was thorough," he said. "These medical records alone disprove her paternity claim. The procedure was 3 years before the child's conception. It's biologically impossible. What should I do? I asked. I don't want to humiliate her publicly, but I can't let her take half our home based on lies. Robert leaned back thoughtfully. First, we need more information. I recommend hearing an investigator to understand Diana's current situation. There's likely motivation beyond cruelty here. He recommended Thomas Rivera, a former detective now working private investigations. Thomas arrived an hour later, a professional man with a straightforward demeanor. I explained the situation while Thomas took detailed notes, asking pointed questions about Diana's relationships, employment, and finances. I'll need several days, Thomas said. I'll focus, initially, on her financial situation and relationship with the child's actual father. I shared what little I knew about Jordan, the musician Diana had been dating when she became pregnant. I'd only met him a few times, and he'd seemed disengaged at family gatherings. He wasn't at the party, which seemed strange for the father, I mentioned. Thomas nodded, making notes. That's a good starting point. I'll be in touch. The investigation results. 4 days later, Thomas requested a meeting at Robert's office. When I arrived, both men were reviewing documents spread across the conference table. Mrs. Chen, Thomas began, I've uncovered concerning information about your sister. According to his investigation, Diana faced severe financial distress. She accumulated over $60,000 in debt across credit cards, personal loans, and medical bills from Emma's surgery for a congenital condition shortly after birth. Her credit score was extremely poor, and she'd been rejected for multiple loan applications recently. She's also facing eviction, Thomas continued, sliding a document toward me. This notice was filed last week. She has until month's end to pay 4 months of back rent or vacate. As for Jordan, he'd apparently left Diana and Emma shortly after the birth, relocating to another state with a new partner. He paid minimal child support, barely $150 monthly, and even that irregularly. I also found these, Thomas said, producing message printouts. She's been discussing plans to claim part of your house for weeks. The messages were between Diana and her friend Melissa. Reading them made me physically ill. Marcus's death is tragic, but maybe it's my chance to finally get what I deserve. That house is worth at least $650K now. If I handle this right, I'll have security for Emma and me. The will is almost finished. My friend Alex is skilled with design software and found Marcus's signature online from a charity event. It looks completely legitimate. Rachel has always been the perfect one. Time for me to get my share. The calculated coldness shocked me. This wasn't opportunism. It was premeditated fraud designed to exploit my grief. There's more, Thomas said gently. Jordan Martin has a history of domestic incidents from previous relationships and currently has warrants for unpaid child support for another child in a different state. I sat stunned, trying to process everything. My sister wasn't just desperate. She was willing to destroy Marcus's reputation and our marriage to solve her problems. What options do I have? I asked, looking between Robert and Thomas. Robert removed his glasses. You could file charges for attempted fraud and forgery. Given the amount involved, that would likely result in criminal penalties, possibly incarceration. He paused, seeing my distress. Or we could handle this privately. Confront her with evidence, require her to retract claims, and potentially arrange something that protects both you and the child. Seeking guidance. I left with a folder of evidence and called my therapist, Dr. Patricia Kim, whom I'd been seeing since Marcus's death. In her calm office, I shared everything. I'm so angry I can barely function, I admitted. But Emma is innocent, and despite everything, Diana is still my sister. Dr. Kim listened attentively. This pattern of competition and manipulation has existed since childhood, she observed. The current situation is escalation, not anomaly. What would you do? I asked desperately. I can't make that decision, she replied. But compassion doesn't mean allowing victimization. You can be kind while establishing firm boundaries and consequences. After much reflection, I decided on a course of action. I would confront Diana privately with all evidence, offering her a choice: face potential legal consequences or accept a compromise providing for Emma while requiring accountability. Hash the confrontation. I called Diana the next morning. "We need to discuss the will. Can you come to my house tomorrow afternoon? Just you, no Emma." "I knew you'd see reason," she replied, sounding satisfied. "I'll be there at 2. I spent the morning preparing, arranging documents logically, and setting up recording devices on Robert's advice. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Diana stood on the porch looking polished, confidence evident in her posture. "Come in," I said, leading her to the living room where I'd set up facing chairs with a coffee table between them holding a recorder, water glasses, and a document folder. "I hope you don't mind recording our conversation. Given the legal nature of this discussion, it seems prudent." Diana hesitated briefly before nodding. "Sure, whatever makes you comfortable, though I think this should be straightforward." I turned on the recorder, statting the date and confirming Diana's consent. Then I sat back, studying her face. "Before discussing the will, I'd like to understand exactly what you claim happened between you and Marcus." Diana launched into a rehearsed story about a supposed relationship 3 years ago, meetings at hotels, Marcus's alleged unhappiness in our marriage, and Emma being conceived during these encounters. "He always meant to tell you," she said with practiced sincerity. "But then Emma's health issues arose, and he didn't want to add stress. He promised to provide for his daughter, though." I listened without interrupting, noting inconsistencies and details contradicting Marcus's actual schedule during that period. When she finished, I began asking specific questions. Which hotel? What days? What were the room details? What were Marcus's habits? Details only someone actually intimate with him would know. Diana grew increasingly flustered, her answers becoming vague or contradictory. "Why does any of this matter?" she finally snapped. "The point is Emma is Marcus's daughter, and the will proves he wanted to provide for her." "Actually," I said calmly, opening my folder, "both those claims are demonstrably false." I placed the medical records on the table. 3 years before Emma was conceived, Marcus had a procedure that made him unable to father children. It was completely successful, confirmed by follow-up testing. It was physically impossible for him to father a child afterward. Diana's face drained of color. She picked up the records with trembling hands. "These could be fake," she said weakly. "They're not. Marcus's doctor will testify to their authenticity if necessary. But that's just the beginning." I produced the legitimate will, properly notarized and filed. "This is Marcus's actual will, prepared by Robert Chen and witnessed by 2 attorneys. As you see, it leaves everything to me with no mention of Emma." Diana's confidence was visibly crumbling. "The will you have is a forgery," I continued evenly. "Creating fraudulent legal documents is a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison." I methodically presented the remaining evidence: Marcus's journal documenting her advances, the messages between her and Melissa discussing the plan, and finally Thomas's investigation report detailing her financial troubles. "We know everything, Diana," I said. "The question now is what happens next." For a long moment, she sat in stunned silence. Then she began to cry, not theatrical tears, but deep, body-racking sobs. "I didn't know what else to do," she finally gasped. "I'm about to be homeless. Emma and I will be on the street in 2 weeks. Jordan left us with nothing. Medical bills keep coming. I thought if I could just get money from the house." "So you decided to destroy Marcus's reputation?" I asked, my voice hardening. "To tell everyone he betrayed me, to forge legal documents." "I was desperate," she shouted, sadness turning to anger. "You have everything, this beautiful house, a successful business, everyone's respect. What do I have? A baby with health problems, $60,000 in debt, and an eviction notice." Her outburst hung in the air. The raw honesty, stripped of manipulation, reached something in me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps understanding. Emma is Jordan's daughter, isn't she? I asked more gently. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, Marcus never touched me like that. I tried years ago. He always shut me down immediately. He was frustratingly loyal to you. And the will? Alex helped me create it. He does graphic design and thought faking a signature would be simple. I planned to use it to pressure you into giving me money. I never thought you'd investigate so thoroughly. I turned off the recorder and sat back, considering my next move. I could press charges, I said finally. What you did was illegal, cruel, and calculated. She nodded miserably. But that would hurt Emma, I continued. And despite everything, she's my niece. I love her. I leaned forward. So here's what will happen. You'll tell everyone the truth, that you lied about the affair, that Emma is Marcus's daughter, and that you forged the will. You'll apologize publicly to me and to Marcus's memory. And then what? She asked, her voice small. We'll still be evicted. I'm not finished. In exchange for your full confession and a legal agreement never to attempt anything like this again, I'll help you and Emma. Not by giving you half my house, but by establishing a trust fund for Emma's education and medical needs, and helping you find stable housing. Her eyes widened. Why would you do that after what I did? Not for you, I said honestly. For Emma, and because Marcus would want me to help his niece, even though her mother tried to destroy his reputation. There will be conditions, I continued. You'll enter therapy and financial counseling. You'll maintain steady employment, and you'll allow me to be part of Emma's life to ensure she's properly cared for. Violate any condition, and the support stops immediately. Diana was quiet, processing everything. I don't deserve your help, she finally said. No, you don't, I agreed. But Emma deserves a stable home and medical care, and I deserve to have Marcus's memory untarnished. This solution gives us both what we need. After discussing details, Diana agreed to my terms. We would meet with Robert the next day to formalize the agreement, and she would make her public confession at a family dinner the following weekend. As I showed her out, she paused at the door. I really am sorry, Rachel. I've been jealous of you my whole life. Everything always seemed easy for you. Nothing about my life has been easy, I replied. You just never looked past the surface. Maybe it's time you started. Hash the family dinner. The family dinner I arranged for Saturday was tense from the start. My parents arrived early, my mother bringing her signature casserole as a peace offering. I don't know what this is about, she said, setting the dish on my counter. But Diana has been calling us in tears saying you're forcing her to attend some family meeting. Just wait until everyone's here, I replied, pouring her wine. This needs to be addressed once with everyone present. By 7 o'clock, we were all seated, my parents, Diana with Emma at a sitter, and me. A recorder sat in the center of the table. Thank you for coming, I began after explaining the recording. I've asked Diana to share important information. Diana. My sister looked pale and uncomfortable. She stared at her plate as she spoke. I lied about Emma being Marcus's daughter, she said, her voice barely audible. Marcus and I never had a relationship. Emma is Jordan's child, and I forged the will I showed at the party. My parents stared in shock. Why would you do such a thing? My father demanded. Do you have any idea what that claim did to your sister, to Marcus's reputation? Diana explained her desperate financial situation. The mounting debts, Jordan's abandonment, the eviction notice. Oh, honey, my mother said when Diana finished. Why didn't you just come to us for help? You didn't need to fabricate such terrible lies. Would you have given me $325,000? Diana asked bluntly. Because that's what I would have gotten if my plan worked, half the house value. Of course we couldn't give you that, my father said, but we could have helped with rent temporarily. Instead, you chose to defraud your sister while she was grieving. I know it was wrong, Diana admitted. Rachel has evidence to press charges if she wanted. My mother turned to me in alarm. You wouldn't do that to your own sister, would you? I felt frustrated at her immediate defense of Diana, even now. I could, I said firmly. What she did wasn't just immoral, it was criminal. Forgery and fraud are felonies. But she's family, my mother insisted, and she has Emma. I'm family too, I replied, my voice rising. Your daughter too, the one who just lost her husband and had to defend his memory against false accusations. Where was your concern for me in all this? My father looked uncomfortable. Of course we care about you, Rachel, but Diana has always needed more help. And whose fault is that? I asked. You've been rescuing her from poor decisions her entire life. Maybe if you'd let her face consequences occasionally, she wouldn't have escalated to criminal behavior. My mother gasped. That's hardly fair. Diana, surprisingly, shook her head. No, Mom, Rachel's right. You always made excuses for me, always fixed my mistakes. It didn't help me. It just taught me I could do whatever I wanted without consequences. My parents looked stunned at this admission. So what happens now? My father asked. Is Diana going to jail? No, I said. I've decided not to press charges under certain conditions. I outlined the agreement, the trust fund for Emma, the therapy requirements, the employment condition. That's very generous, my father said, looking relieved. It's more than generous, Diana agreed quietly, more than I deserve. Well, my mother said, brightening, this is working out for the best. Diana has apologized, Rachel is helping with Emma, and we can put this behind us. It's not that simple, Mom, I said firmly. Trust has been broken. Healing will take time if it happens at all, and there need to be boundaries going forward. What kind of boundaries? She asked, worried. For one, I need you both to stop enabling Diana. No more bailouts, no more excuses. She needs to stand on her own with appropriate support that doesn't perpetuate dependency. My father nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. And I need you to respect that my relationship with Diana will be different now. I'll be involved in Emma's life because I love her. But Diana and I won't be close the way we once were, at least not for a long time. My mother looked distressed. But we're family, we need to stick together. Being family doesn't mean tolerating abuse, Mom, I said gently. What Diana did was abusive. She tried to exploit my grief. That has consequences even within families. The remainder of dinner was subdued, my parents processing this new reality. When they left, my father hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Rachel. Marcus would be too. My mother hugged me as well, but her eyes were sad, already mourning the idealized family dynamic she'd always pretended we had. Diana was last to leave. At the door, she hesitated. I really am sorry, she said again. Not just for the will and lies, but for everything. For the years of competition and jealousy, for not being the sister you deserved. I know, I replied. And I hope therapy helps you understand why you made these choices. Emma deserves a mother who's emotionally healthy and honest. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I answered truthfully. But I'm willing to see where this new path takes us, for Emma's sake, and maybe someday for ours too. 1 year later. 1 year after Marcus's death, I stood in our garden watching spring bulbs push through soil. The tulips Marcus had planted the previous fall were blooming, vibrant red against newly green lawn. I felt bittersweet ache seeing them, knowing he'd planted them hoping to see them bloom. So much had changed in that year. The trust fund for Emma was established and already helping with her ongoing medical needs. Her condition, while requiring monitoring, was responding well to treatment. She was growing into a cheerful, curious toddler. Diana had surprised everyone by truly embracing the agreement conditions. 6 months of therapy helped her recognize patterns stemming from childhood, the constant competition, the self-sabotage characterizing many decisions. She'd found steady employment as an office manager at a medical practice, providing stability and benefits. Our relationship remained formal but cordial. I saw Emma regularly, taking her to parks or children's museums. Diana and I didn't pretend closeness, but we'd found a way to coexist peacefully for Emma's sake. My parents had struggled initially with the new boundaries. My mother especially found it difficult accepting that her daughters wouldn't have the close relationship she'd envisioned. But over time, they adjusted, learning to support Diana without enabling dependency. As for me, the grief support group I'd joined shortly after Marcus's death had become a lifeline. 12 strangers bound by loss had become friends, understanding each other in ways even well-meaning family couldn't. We met weekly, sharing our journeys through grief. 4 months after the confrontation with Diana, I established the Marcus Chen Memorial Scholarship for Financial Education, providing opportunities to students from underserved backgrounds interested in financial planning. It gave me purpose to see Marcus's legacy continuing. Old friends had stepped up in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Marcus's colleagues checked in regularly, inviting me to dinners and events. My college roommate flew in monthly for weekends, sometimes doing nothing more than watching movies and ordering takeout. And then there was David. I met him at a Scholarship Foundation fundraiser 7 months after Marcus died. He was a professor of psychology at the local university, thoughtful and kind with quiet humor that reminded me of Marcus in some ways. We started as friends, sharing coffee after foundation meetings, then gradually transitioning to occasional dinners. It was different than what I'd had with Marcus, as it should be. David understood that Marcus would always be part of my life, that loving again didn't mean replacing what came before. We were taking things slowly, both cautious but hopeful. Standing in the garden that spring morning, I reflected on everything Marcus had taught me, not just during our years together, but even after he was gone. His foresight in preparing those documents had protected me when I was most vulnerable. His journal entries had validated my experiences when even my parents tried to dismiss them. His love continued to shield me in his absence. I'd learned difficult lessons through this ordeal. Family relationships need clear boundaries to remain healthy. Documentation isn't just legal precaution. Sometimes it's emotional necessity. Forgiveness doesn't have to mean forgetting or allowing harmful patterns to continue. Sometimes those we expect to protect us are the ones we need protection from. But I'd also learned about my own strength. I'd faced Diana's betrayal, navigated legal complexities, and made difficult decisions about moving forward, all while processing devastating loss. I'd found a way to honor Marcus's memory while beginning to build a new life. The tulips swayed in the spring breeze, resilient after the long winter. I thought about how grief is like that too, not a straight line, but a series of seasons, each bringing its own challenges and unexpected beauties. I wasn't the same person I'd been before Marcus died, before Diana's betrayal. I was stronger in some ways, more cautious in others, but ultimately more authentic in how I approached relationships and boundaries. Sometimes the most painful betrayals force us to find strength we never knew we had, I said softly to the garden Marcus had loved. You couldn't have known what would happen after you were gone, but somehow you prepared me to face it, and in that way, your love protects me still. As I turned to go inside, I felt peace that had been absent for so long. Not because grief was gone, it never would be completely, but because I'd found a way to carry it alongside hope for the future. Marcus had given me that gift, teaching me that love endures even when the person is gone, that preparation and honesty are acts of profound caring. Final thoughts. If there's one thing I'd share with anyone facing betrayal within their family, it's this: protect yourself with both documentation and boundaries. The people who truly love you will respect those boundaries, and those who don't were never safe for you to begin with. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? Healing isn't linear, but it's always possible. This is an original work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.